Happy Thursday. Here we are again. So glad to have you with me. My name is Debbie D. Grote, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching. So do me a favor, if you will, type a quick hello in the chat box, where you're from. And I am so proud of you for joining this webinar today, because accountability is not easy. In fact, probably 90% of the world avoids being held accountable. So just the fact that you guys are here today tells me that more than the usual audience, you are even more awesome. So thank you so much for joining. Awesome. I see Miami, Ontario, Toronto, North Carolina. All right, guys, great. So let's get this party started. So maybe if you want to type in the chat box, what inspired you to join this session? Like, where are you stuck when it comes to being accountable? It's really common when people come to us here at Forward for coaching that they'll say, I know what I need to do, but I just often don't do it, right? And I think that's kind of a common issue that many of us have at different times in our life on different things, right? But then also, I guess I would say, while that could be true, sometimes we may not have a clear vision of exactly what we need to do and how we need to do it. So it makes it difficult for us to be accountable or to be held accountable to that particular action. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Michael says, let me go back because I thought that was a great comment. He wants to reinforce and tune up his daily habits. Jennifer says she's here because she's always learning, which, by the way, Jennifer, that in and of itself is almost an accountability item, right? Like, I think every day I have to learn new things. I have to stay on the cutting edge of the industry. If I don't, I'm not going to stay valuable to my customers and clients, right? And we're not going to be right on that edge of that wise advisor. Dana says she gets sidetracked with life activities versus business. And Dina, Dina, that's really hard in the business that we all do, because I think at times our friends and our family, the people around us, they don't look at it like we have a real job, right? You ever find that happens? Like, they think you're the one that can drop everything any time of the day and help them go pick up their car or go to tea or whatever it might be, right? Because they don't view us as having a real job. If you were a high-level corporate executive, if you were a surgeon, for an example, right? Because some of you make more money or have the potential to make more money than a brain surgeon, which is kind of crazy, right? With the opportunity we have. See, your family wouldn't call you in the middle of brain surgery to see if you could pick up the milk on the way home, right? So it makes it a little tough to be held accountable when sometimes the world around you doesn't support that. We often talk about my beginning of my career. I remind you guys every time I start at the age of 18, which means I knew nothing, right? I knew nothing. But you know what? There was one thing in my favor about being a very young real estate agent is I was coming out of high school, coming out of living in my parents' home, and therefore I was actually used to being bossed around and told what to do. And I guess I didn't really understand that I was a, quote, independent contractor, because my broker told me I had to show up every day at 8:00. He gave me a schedule. He gave me activities to do. He held me accountable to those activities. I didn't think I had an option. Now, had I started at a later age, maybe I might have been a little bit more, hey, I'm flexible. It's not a real job. But he didn't let me do that. And that was such a blessing. So after 3,000 real estate transactions and 25 years of coaching the brightest and best, I would say number one issue in our industry is probably being accountable to treating this business like it is a real job. So let's talk about the theory of accountability. So when actions needed are very clear, the work gets done both efficiently and effectively, and it also allows constructive and strategic change to occur. So I'm going to give you an example, really simple one. It would probably be very common if I spoke with some of you to hear you say, I really am going to call my sphere of influence and past clients more this year. Absolutely, I need to call them. Okay, that's a goal. I mean, it's kind of an action, and yet it's not well defined enough, right? So as a coach, I would say, all right, yes, you need to call that group. It's your quality group. Potentially 80% of your business will come from that group. However, what day are you calling them on? Is it Monday through Friday? What time will you make those calls? To cycle through your entire list in a 90-day period, how many dials do you need to make per day? And how many conversations are you going to have? And what is your script? And what is the outcome you're hoping to achieve? See, I need to know the who, what, where, when, why, and how in order to be a coach that holds you accountable. But see, that also applies for yourself, to hold yourself accountable to the actions, to get them done efficiently and effectively. And then when you work that system, now you can tweak and adjust and be more strategic to get even more result out of that particular action. So just accept now and forever, accountability is a critical ingredient in your recipe for future success. Now, some of you may have gotten into this business because you're like, you know what? I just want to be free. I want to be free to be me. I want flexibility. I want to fly a little by the seat of my pants every day. The problem with that is you won't have a predictable outcome. See, a predictable process provides for a predictable outcome. And the up and down of this business often is because the accountability to do the actions consistently each and every day is not there. And I get it. It's boring sometimes, right? To show up and grind it out and make your calls and have your connections and do those activities. If every day of your week looks wildly different, then guess what? You probably don't have enough accountability to that committed schedule that you need. So let's talk about definition of accountability. Kind of simple. Being held responsible for doing the things that are expected of you. So that's easy enough. But what's the mindset around accountability? Why are some people so much more dedicated to being their word, to staying the course, to being accountable than others? People often say to me, I struggle with accountability. I struggle with staying on my schedule. Gosh, I guess I'm just lazy. Or maybe I just can't do it. But guess what, guys? We're all lazy. If we were left alone, we would probably lounge around like my dog does in the sunshine, just taking a break, being chill. So when you see people who are highly accountable that you admire, talk to them about how did that happen? Because usually how it happened is it started with a discipline of putting it in their calendar, of doing it, probably sometimes not always doing it, but doing it more consistently than not until it became a habit. And once it became a habit and the brain adjusted to that new pattern, it made it easier to stay the course of the accountability. So, what accountability will really do for you is it's going to help you reinforce those habits you need to create and the disciplines you need to master. I want to tell you a true story, kind of a fun little story. When I was selling real estate and having some really great years, and I would sell a lot of houses every month, I didn't have any kids. And there was a lady in my office, her name was Carol. Carol had 5 kids. One of them was a tiny baby rolling around on the floor of her office. She had 5 kids. She didn't sell as many houses as I did, but almost as many with 5 kids. And, I asked her once, I think her oldest was 12 or 13. And I said, you've got all these kids, and yet I see you in the office every day on time, and you're making your calls, and you're doing the work. She goes, oh, I have a great accountability program. She said, in my garage, I have this little chart. And on the chart, it has all the things I'm supposed to do. How many people I'm supposed to talk to every day, how many sales I'm supposed to make. And there's a box of gold stars. And she said, when I pull up in the garage every day, all the bigger kids come running out to meet her, grab the box of stars to put those stars up by the things that she accomplished. And they have a rule that at the end of the month, if there's a certain amount of stars, then they get to do something cool as a family. Go to Disneyland, buy jet skis, whatever they came up with as the goal for that month. And she said, Debbie, it is the best accountability because I don't want to let my kids down. And she said, and it's the worst accountability because on the day that I fail to keep my commitments and they're looking at me with that stars in their hand going, Mom, we're not going to get to go to Disneyland. Come on, Mom, right? So that's reinforcing those habits. So accountability helps you establish a consistent pattern in your brain. The reason I keep saying this, guys, it's because every day, we all have to do these really hard things. Talking to strangers is hard. Making that phone call to that cranky seller who's upset with you because their house hasn't sold already is hard. But when you do these things that you must do over and over and over again with a consistent pattern or habit, your brain accepts it as normal. Now, this is kind of a scary story, so I hope I don't freak you guys out, but it's definitely one that I learned an awesome lesson from. So I was doing an event, and one of the speakers that I was a speaker, and one of the other speakers was Jerry Coffey. And Jerry was one of the fighter pilots that back during the Vietnam War, the plane crash, he was taken prisoner of war, and he was in the Hanoi Hilton. And those of you who may not know, that was a prison camp, a very bad one, right? If you look it up, you're going to freak out. So he was in there with other fighter pilots. They developed that, that knocking code to communicate with each other. And he was there, I forget, I think it was 7 years, right? Or maybe even more. And in the meantime, his wife declared him dead and got remarried. I mean, this is crazy. This poor man's life just ruined. But the most positive guy I ever met. And he said to me, Debbie, I decided that after that, anything in my life I would encounter, it's not hard. right? It's just stuff. It's just work. It's just life. He goes, that taught me not only to be tough, but he said it taught me how powerful my mind is, how I can control my mind and I can be accountable to living a great life and doing the things I need to do. So he shared with me, and this is the creepy part of the story, guys. So plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. He said to me, he goes, Debbie, the guards had something that they would do to us every Tuesday. They would take us out in the yard and whack our leg with a stick to re-break our leg. He said, because they wanted to keep us hobbled so we wouldn't run away. And he said, the weird thing is after some months, my brain accepted, oh, it's Tuesday. My leg's going to get broken. He goes, did I enjoy it? No. Would I rather it never ever happen? Yes. He said, but my brain could compartmentalize that and manage that stress and that pain to where it really didn't even elevate my blood pressure. He said, but the thing is, on the days when they did random things that we weren't used to, totally freaked me out, right? So all that to say, if you find calling your past clients in Sphere extremely difficult, think about Jerry. You can manage anything given a consistent pattern over time. And I got to tell you, he was the greatest man I've ever met. But he learned the habit of staying out of that negativity, finding the good in life, and being accountable to the things that mattered. So I need you to ask yourself, what disciplines or habits do you need to be held accountable to that will help you achieve the success and the quality of life that you deserve? And if you've been with me on previous sessions, we talked about the fact that motivation can be fleeting. You can be motivated, excited, inspired, and an hour later, it's evaporated. What will drive you, what will keep you accountable is your purpose. So who in your life that matters to you and what will achieving your goals do for them? When you are accountable, how will that change your future? Who will you be able to help with the money that you earn? So what new disciplines or habits do you need to be held accountable to? And then a really great question to ask yourself today, and if you want to be super, transparent and type it in the chat box, go right ahead. What are you avoiding? See, we all have that one or two things that we're avoiding tackling it, but we know without a doubt that if we did it, we could move the needle in a big way. So think about that. What are you avoiding that if you tackled it, you could move the needle in the big way? Because that's probably the very one thing that you need to do. So, got to ask yourself, okay, I've got some ideas here. I know what my actions and activities should be. Are they, though, time blocked into your calendar? See, I still remember my real estate schedule because I ran it like a machine for 16 years. Every day at the office at 7:30, pulling up the expired listings. First thing I did at 8 o'clock, call the expired listings. The second thing I did, contact the for sale by owners. The third thing I did was dial through my required amount of past clients or Sphere. The fourth thing I did was do my outbound calls. Obviously, today we know we have to be careful of those who are on the do not call list and call our opted in people or our permission-based people. But I would do all of that before noon, including my hot lead follow-up. So it was go, go, go. One to the next, to the next, to the next. Now it's noon. Usually ate a Taco Bell burrito at my desk because lunch wasn't a big thing because I was busy. I would catch up on emails and messages, then out the door, and I've had my afternoon schedule as well. But see, I ran it like a machine. The flex time was afternoon. So I might say, well, 1 to 2:30, I'm previewing property. However, if I'm showing property, great. I can plug that into that spot. But I worked very hard to make that morning my non-negotiable, right? I knew that was the money time. So if you could be heard saying this, I know what I need to do, but I just need to do it, then why aren't you doing it? And I think of this time of the year, it's a little bit like a fork in the road for you. So you started out the year, maybe with some good resolutions of things you plan to do, and they haven't happened. You haven't done them. You haven't taken the action. But guess what? We've got a lot of year left. And if you choose that fork in the road that's action and specific accountability, it is not too late to have an amazing year. So I know what I need to do, but I just need to do it. Then do it. And why might you not? Because it's hard. I get it. And it's human nature to fear and resist change. Think of all the broken New Year's resolutions. And I appreciate in the chat box that you guys are talking about fear and fear of being uncomfortable. Jeanette, I call it that creepy feeling. You know how you get that creepy feeling of, I really don't want to do this. Think about, you see, here's a perfect example. I'm out walking early this morning and a rat runs across the sidewalk right in front of me, stands up like this and is looking at me. And I got that creepy feeling like, oh, is it going to bite me? Is it rabid? Do I go around it? I'm not stepping over it? Maybe if I just stand here, it'll run away, right? That creepy feeling. You can all imagine that feeling. It's the same feeling, though, when I knocked on a door for the first time. It was that same feeling when I made that expired call. But see, your subconscious mind is protective of you. And anything that's hard, it's saying, danger, danger, it's dangerous, don't do it. It's not dangerous. You just haven't trained your brain that I can take this action. I'm going to survive just fine. And in fact, there's reward on the other side. And then sometimes you might be, well, I tried to create new habits, but I fell off the wagon. Or Michael, I got wrapped up in my fear of conditions I can't control, or I was afraid to make a mistake. That's just human nature. There's a funny video, and guys, it's a super ancient one. But if you Google Bob Newhart, stop it. So Bob Newhart, stop it video. Bob Newhart passed away pretty elderly, just I think a couple years ago. And in his acting days, he played a psychologist. Well, he made this spoof, this little video where he's pretending to be a psychologist. And a lady comes in and says, I have a fear of being buried in a box. And he's like, well, have you ever been buried in a box? No. Does anybody threaten you to be buried in a box? No. Well, then stop it. And that was his answer. Everything she would say that was her fear and dilemma, he'd say, stop it. And it's funny that in reading about the brain, what I've actually read is your brain will protect you from the negative things that others say. But what you're saying inside of your mind there's no protection from that. There's no filter. So when I say, this habit's too hard, I don't want to do it. I don't really know if it's going to work. I'm going to do something different. Then your brain is telling you that's okay because it's uncomfortable. So psychologists would say you should actually say out loud, stop it, and replace that negative thought with a positive one. So here's a good quote. You're going to mess up. So instead of trying to be perfect, learn how to be accountable. Can you imagine if 80% of the time you stayed on a great schedule? Not 100%, but 80%. So you're going to mess up, but we got to be accountable. So tactics of accountability: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Now, take a screenshot of that, because when you're setting up a new goal and you're wanting to be held accountable or holding yourself accountable, remember, it has to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. I'm not a super fan of, and this is up to you guys, some of you roll really well setting these giant, crazy big goals. Doesn't work well for most people. For most people, if they set a goal they don't actually believe in, it'll go away quickly. It'll go in the desk drawer. It'll be forgotten. So start with attainable. If you've not been in a habit of calling your past clients at all, it might not be attainable to say, I'm going to call past clients for 4 hours today. But it could be attainable to say 30 minutes. And I'm going to do that for several days or a couple of weeks. And then I'm going to go to 45. And then I'm going to go to 60. So attainable is a big deal. Then the accountability around the action steps that must be taken to produce a positive and predictable outcome. Now, can you hold yourself accountable? Sure. Some of you are highly accountable people. I'll have people that come here for coaching. They'll say, I'm hard on myself. I don't need to be held accountable. I just need strategy. So maybe you're the one that can hold yourself accountable. Or maybe it's your team leader or your office manager. Maybe it's a spouse or significant other, or maybe you need a coach. But we need to be able, whoever is helping you be accountable, to share those action steps so they know what you're supposed to be doing and when. Funny story, one of our clients said he took a copy of his schedule and he took it home and he put it on the fridge. And he said to his wife, I want you to help hold me accountable to this. And his wife said, wow, I guess I can finally see you actually do work. Because she didn't know, what did he do all day, right? He went out the door and she had no clue. So now she knows. Now she's going to hold him accountable. So also part of accountability is being accountable to work on skills that would be required to achieve the goal. So for example, if your goal was to create more repeat and referral business, then of course we have the accountability to reach out to those people, how many, and what you're going to say. But we might need to work on the skill of having those conversations. We might need to work on the skill of having the market knowledge and expertise to spark legitimate urgency, right? So there's always a next level of skill. And always being accountable to analyze our weaknesses, identify our gaps, and find the blind spots that are blocking your progress. Some of you may be excessively hard on yourself. Others may be missing those blind spots, which I think in coaching, one of the things I find we do really well here is finding the balance in that. Because feeling guilty and beating yourself up, that's not a positive action, right? Analyzing, what did I do right? What should I be doing differently or change the next time this situation occurs? And what if I learn from this? So if I've done something that turned out to be a disaster, I just blew it on a listing appointment. And I'm thinking, I just lost $20,000. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, wait, what did I do right? Well, I made the call that got me the appointment. I prepared well for the appointment. What did I do wrong? I didn't close them. I walked away from the table and then they listed with someone else 2 days later. Okay, not going to do that again. Then what did I learn from it? And how is that going to earn me more or save me pain in the future? And now I just need to move on, right? Move on, live to fight another day. So, habits of highly accountable people. I found this from Inc. magazine. It's awesome. So, habits of highly accountable people, number one, they take responsibility. They're not victims. They don't blame others. They don't blame the market. They take responsibility. Number two, they don't make excuses. That's why in coaching here at Forward, if you're working with us, we won't ask you, why didn't you do something? Because even that question leads to excuses. Instead, we would say specifically what got in the way and what stopped you from doing what you need to do so we can strategically make the corrections. Highly accountable people are on time. You know, it is shocking how many times I talk to real estate agents who tell me that they're often late for an appointment with a buyer or seller. That's crazy, right? Because you think about how hard you work to get to that table and how disrespectful that is to that person and the money that's at stake on both sides. So highly accountable people are on time. They control their own fate. So, you know, if we go back to Michael's concern about economic conditions I can't control, you know, Michael, you can't. Just like when I got into the business, my very first year, fixed interest rates went to 18%. And I pretty much thought my career was over, like, who is going to buy a house at 18%? But my broker gave me the book, Think and Grow Rich. And he said, I want you to say this every day, whatever the mind can believe and conceive, it can achieve. And I want you to read a little bit of this book every day. And then he said, now, what you have to understand is if the market has constricted, your activities need to increase. So his point was, I could control my own fate. I could still achieve my goal, but I was going to need to take more aggressive action to offset what was happening in the local market. So control your own fate. They also own their feelings. So being clear about, you know, why am I avoiding this? Not because it's not a great action to take, but because I'm afraid. Why did I blow that deal? Because I let my ego get out of control, right? They own their feelings. They manage expectations. It's not always perfect. We know we can think we got the best month going and a deal falls out. So how do they manage that expectation? They're very collaborative. And in fact, in our negotiations course, we talk about the best negotiators are not people that beat others into submission, but they're instead the ones that are highly collaborative. And highly accountable people, they don't expect praise. They don't look for praise. They just do their job. So I found this quote: being held accountable, which, as we all know, can be painful, but being held accountable is an act of generosity and compassion. It's a gift that someone gives us to correct our wrongs, to unlearn and do better for the sake of our growth. It might be uncomfortable, but it's worth the discomfort. And in this business, there is always pain. It's either the pain of doing what's hard, and you should do it, or the pain of not having the results you deserve. So the pain of lack of accountability, missing your goals, poor execution, avoidance of important tasks, unclear priorities, low motivation, and even slumps. And depression, right? Because you're not achieving what you deserve to achieve. So the rewards of accountability: improved performance, feelings of greater competence, which makes you more creative, right? Because you feel good about yourself. Your morale is higher and you're actually happier. Do you guys, know the feeling, right? When you have that day where you did everything in that day you were supposed to do. You followed your schedule, you followed your plan, you had success. Maybe you didn't get the deal yet, but you had success because you made those connections. And you go home and you sleep well because you did your job. That's the reward of accountability. So the more accountability you create around yourself, the more likely you're going to be to take the action. So I want you to ask yourself, who is holding you accountable? And multiple partners are a great idea. So it could be a friend in the office. It could be a spouse or partner at home. It could even be, I had an accountability partner in my CPA. I know that sounds weird, but here's what I would do is every year at tax time, I would tell him what I was going to earn in the next 12 months because that was my goal. Now, he didn't really have any desire or reason to question whether I would achieve that or not. He just assumed that was going to happen and gave me tax strategy that coincided with that plan. And every quarter, he checked in to see where was the progress, what adjustments we needed to make. My broker held me accountable. My coach held me accountable. My husband held me accountable. So who's holding you accountable? I love our clients here at Forward. And, we talk about brightest and best. Chessie Pagano is 40 years in the real estate industry, one of the top agents in Orange County, California, and she has a coach. Why? Because she never gets tired of growing and learning. She's so intense, and she knows every day the market is changing. And she's always looking. I love the line she said, elevate her real estate business. She is always looking to elevate. And, she has doubled her income since starting coaching with us. Now, this is pretty common with our coaching clients, and I'm going to add a little caveat here. The ones that show up and do the work, right? Because, you could hire us to coach you and not do a single thing that we agree you're going to do, and then you're not going to get the results. But the people who show up and do the work with the strategic coaching we do, they often double their income in the first year. But see, she's a veteran agent. She could say, I know what I need to do, but I just need to do it. So it was with her, though, the accountability plus strategies of what was going on in her market that she might be avoiding or not taking advantage of. See, what I love about this is all of the things that are possible for all of you. And I know some of you are already in coaching with us here at Forward, which is fantastic. And please know, as the head coach here, I am always here for you to make sure it's a great experience. And if you're not coaching with us, but you'd like to consider that, we have no contract. Everything is custom around you, your personality, and the market. My coaches are 20 to 40 years in the industry. They have all sold and done every type of real estate at a very high level, and you'll have direct access to me. So if it's time to be more accountable, to have a coach, you can scan that QR code. Gary or Ron on my team, customer service, they're not salespeople. They'll reach out, ask you some questions so I have some info to be prepared to speak with you. And it would be an honor and a pleasure to help you achieve your goal. So I hope you took something away today, one or two ideas, one or two thoughts, and an inspiration to be committed to your goals. And Michael, thank you for saying that, posting those goals. So when you have your written business plan, please review that full plan each week. Take those key 4 or 5 goals. I love putting them on an index card, on your bathroom mirror, on the dashboard of your car, on your phone. Hey, a vision board that you can see in the office as you're doing those things that are hard. And just think about how you'll feel when it's December 31st, 2025. You're at the end of the year. You're reflecting on all that you've accomplished, and you're really proud of yourself because you were one of the few, the proud, and the brave, right? So, guys, let's go do it, all right? So, have a great day, and I will see you all next week. Bye-bye.